Well, because the UN sanctions regime on North Korea is so multifaceted, pretty much A to Z of normal economic activity is prohibited technically when it comes to North Korea. And then this means that they're basically, just through the simple act of breathing as a nation state economically, they're usually breaching many layers of the sanctions regime. The types of activities that North Korea engages in is military proliferation, importing technologies for their weapons of mass destruction programs. Cyber has become a huge part of what they do, so hacking and theft from crypto exchanges, luxury goods imports to reward elites within Pyongyang. These are some of the big areas that they're involved in, and if anything, their illicit activities have been significantly expanding for the last 10, 15 years, I would say. So there's two sort of layers of proliferation here, things going into the country illegally and things going out of the country. So some good examples would be components for ballistic missiles or high-end champagne, whiskey for Kim Jong-un and his colleagues. On the other hand, North Korea is also exporting things in breach of UN sanctions. These can include everything from coal to seafood, which are both sanctioned commodities since 2017, but also to things like weapon systems. We've just seen, for example, in the conflict between Hamas and Israel, Hamas using North Korean-made rocket-propelled grenades. So they're taking advantage of new technologies, friendly countries, friendly people, and also investing a lot in North Korean intellectual capabilities. In other words, the staff working on sanctions evasion, the individuals in North Korea, are really encouraged to become technical specialists and given a lot of state resources to figure out ways to get around sanctions. So when it comes to North Korea's criminal activities, outside observers believe most of the revenues that are going in benefit two main programming areas. One is North Korea's development of weapons of mass destruction, and two is Kim Jong-un, the royal family, if you will, and the high-level elites around him. I think there's several things to consider. One is the sanctions regime itself. Whilst sanctions can work with some countries that have very open economies, North Korea is so isolated that UN and US and EU sanctions have not really had much impact on the regime in Pyongyang. There's very little pain felt by North Korea when it can engineer new ways to get around sanctions quite effectively, quite quickly. The problem is it's led North Korea to rely more and more on China and Russia, and that means that the leverage that sanctions should create have significantly diminished, and it seems to me pretty clear that North Korea is not going to change its ways and will continue to developing weapons of mass destruction unimpeded. I think one thing that could help is to give them a serious alternative, a legal area of economic activity where they could make good money and enable a state to rake in a bit of legal cash. The problem is most policymakers don't want North Korea to make any cash because they are of the belief that that money will get funneled into weapons of mass destruction programs, and therefore we're in this kind of catch-22.